Welcome to Episode 2 of Where in the World, Season 4, the detailed showcase of cities and locations that have been visited in the Arcane Adventures campaign setting. For Season 4, we'll cover locations from across Mount Celestia, the realm of the Seven Heavens. As always, in each episode, we have a map on screen that details the general location of the place we were talking about during that episode. Let's jump right into Episode 2 of Season 4, Where in the World? The Temple of Joining. Nestled in the snow-laden tundra of Mount Celestia's third lair, Vinya, a small plateau of some kind rises 10 to 12 feet above the main footpath that runs through the surrounding hills. Just atop the small plateau, the first rings of columns that surround the temple are merely dwarfed by the central temple building that rises to a height of about 700 feet. The thick marble-like columns, roughly 14 feet in diameter, rise to form the facade of the structure. The gold leaflet plated on the column's high points decorate the buttresses and the navel roofing. The structure is open air, allowing the rather chilly air of Vinya to pass through. Yet no ice accumulates on the structure, and the insides radiate a rather warm interior. The Temple of Joining was constructed millennia ago. In Celestia, it has been noted that time is very difficult to place and pinpoint exactly. But the temple, according to the timeline of the Prime, that is, the material plane of Ilethia, dates the temple to being roughly constructed nearing the start of the Divine Dreadnought, which is a secondary name for the Centrum Wars, sourcing from the planes outside of the material. At best, the temple is likely 8,500 to 9,000 years of age. But because Celestia seems to spin a different aspect of time, that number could very much be actually increased. Regardless for its age, the Temple of Joining looks rather decent. Some cracks formed by the temperate weathering, but the structure is very much and highly intact. In fact, divine historians, archons, and others postulate that the Temple of Joining might be one of the oldest structures on Mount Celestia. But again, it's hard to know for sure. Aside from the many wintry gardens that lie between the outer ring of columns and the central temple itself, which are thought to have been added later, the original temple was built as a site of remembrance. To understand that, a look into the past is required. Following the events that kick-started the Divine Dreadnought, three powerful and lawful good deities assembled on Mount Celestia to attempt something that was incredibly risky: fusion. Deities were not ever intended to fuse, at least not by our understanding, but that does not mean that it is impossible. The risk was, should a mishap occur, that deities and their domains, ever more so, could be shattered to annihilation. The payoff, however, would be a stronger and more centralized divine power. So Lathander, the god of newness and dawn, Pelor, the god of agriculture and harvest, and Yondala, the goddess of fertility and childbirth, gathered here. Using sacred divine rites, these gods fused their domains into an ultimately successful endeavor, creating the god Lepelon as a result. In remembrance of this, Celestia's inhabitants, including both Moradin and Bahamut, aided in the construction of this very temple. This temple marked the first ever fusion of three deities, and it has stood as a reminder to the sacrifice that these deities made to bind their strengths together and create a unified power. To commemorate this event and the completion of the temple, Aneris gifted a portion of a star to Lepelon in what is simply referred to now as the Sun Orb, which takes its position at the interior highest point of the Temple of Joining. Lepelon called his first follower upon his creation, a man named Methtath, who has since served as the Temple of Joining's guardian and keeper. Inside the main temple, at the center, three large stone statues stand. Lathander, the statue on the right, stands upright with one hand outstretched towards the center. the center being a stone pad directly under the sun orb. Yondala stands on the left side, though much shorter than the others because of her more halfling nature. She also holds an outstretched arm towards the central pad. In the middle stands Pelor, with both arms upholding a glass-like disc that is held in position directly over the central pad, as if used to magnify the light from the sun orb. A small pool of clear water springs up at the base of these statues, surrounding the pad. When arriving and departing this temple, his home, the Pelon is said to stand on this pad and, by beam of bright light, vaporate into the sun orb itself. From the Temple of Joining, one can head back towards Zeranthador on Vinya, the residence of High Archon of Vinya, High Archon Erethal. The other path leads to the Pearly Gates, and ultimately a path that leads up towards Celestia's next lair, Solania. We hope you've enjoyed this closer look at the Temple of Joining, and have found the details about it to your interest. Both a place of remembrance and worship, the Pelon's home and birthplace, and a nice warm stop from the cold weather of Vinya outside. That's all for this episode of Where in the World. We'll see you next time.